The K4 has been a solid replacement for the Forte, so much so that it's currently Kia's second best-selling vehicle here in the United States. But there's something that the Forte had that the K4 still doesn't, at least until now, because there was a Forte hatch, and finally here in 2026, the K4 hatchback has finally arrived. And it's everything you've enjoyed about the K4, but made a little more practical, a little easier to park, and if you wanted a yellow K4, this is the only way to do it. So let's dive into some of the changes and why I would recommend, if you're looking at a K4, that this be the one you consider, at least heavily consider, for your shopping decision. Let me start off with some of the differences before we dive into similarities, because trust me, there are more than a few of those. This is going to start out at a higher trim level than you get on the sedan. Gone are those bottom two trims, and what's left is going to be the EX, the GT line, and the GT line Turbo. But what that also means is we get some carryover when it comes to those powertrains. And in this case, we're looking at a GT line. The question is, what's under the hood? Because it's either a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, putting out 147 horsepower, or it's going to be the 1.6-liter turbocharged 190 horsepower, 195 pound-feet of torque, and that's what we're going to find here under the hood. So this is our GT line. It's the only one you can get in this yellow is a GT line or GT line turbo. You shouldn't expect to see any changes when it comes to things like 0 to 60 time or your fuel economy. Just know this is one of those carryover components, but there's a pro and a con to that. And here's the reason. Because even though this is going to be the quickest version of this K4, whether between the sedan or the hatchback, the sedan has always felt like it wrote a check it couldn't quite cash when it came to how it looked and then how it performed. Not to say this is a bad riding vehicle, but it wasn't as sporty as maybe it looked. And that's actually sort of a carrying on problem here, because this hatchback I think is even sportier looking than we got in the sedan, but it's not going to be any quicker, it's not going to be any better performing, but it is still going to be better looking, which for my money, I think this is probably the best looking and the most performance oriented vehicle, not just for its dollar, but also one that kind of falls short of what it looks like. Let me know down in the comments, would you rather have a car that looked like it was quick and wasn't, or didn't look quick but happened to be? I think I'd probably be okay with this one, but it does make me want just a little bit more when it comes to the oomph. The proportions on this are a little bit interesting because this front end seems unbelievably wide, and the vehicle itself actually seems pretty long, but it's 11 inches shorter than we get over in the sedan. But that wide front end also makes it seem pretty low. Although again, this is going to come in about a ½ inch taller there in the sedan, but it's also going to have a lot of, again, some of those carryover components. Before we get too far back there, let me show you these wheels and tires, because here on the GT line Turbo, we're getting the black wheel treatment with a lot of the glass surround, or the gloss black surround, excuse me, here on things like the fender on that lower splitter. And this wheel is going to be a 19-inch wheel. You can get them in either a 17 or an 18 or a 19, depending on your different trim level. But again, this is not necessarily what I would call a performance tire, but it's going to still be a pretty comfortable riding vehicle. But where the biggest change is going to happen here is basically from this B-pillar back, because this is very much just like the sedan. Here is where things start to change. A lot of that's going to have to do with the headroom, but we'll get there in just a moment. Because as I mentioned, this is 11 inches shorter overall, but it's because it pretty much everything from that wheel arch back, it's the overhang that just disappeared. And just for reference, that's somewhere around 11 inches. So there's a lot less of this, but it doesn't mean there's a lot less practicality. And that's one of the reasons I absolutely love a hatchback. Now, as far as styling goes, we do have a very nice spoiler here. Really does help to finish off the look. And that really wide front end is also pretty much carrying on through the back here. We have a pretty wide rear end, and these lights do a good job of helping accentuate that even just a little bit further. One interesting thing I noted down here though, is that this is going to be your sort of diffuser looking rear end, but that's also where you're going to find your reverse lights. So an interesting way to hide reverse lights keeps those light modules up top a little bit cleaner. And when you do need the reverse light, you don't really care where it's coming from, but in this case, that's where you'll find it. Obviously things like your rear view camera are going to be hidden there in the gloss black as well. Your hatch access is found just outside the Kia logo here, just down below. It's not a powered liftgate, but it is going to be really easy to get in and out of. Behind here, we have 22.2 cubic feet of storage capacity, and that is a fair amount more than the 14.6 we get over in the sedan. And I also think it's going to be easier to load in and out because you're not worried about having to reach too far in to get any of your items, because this hatch is all the way up and you don't have to reach under anything to get there. You also have a little bit more storage found under here. If we lift this load floor up, you can see not only is there a spare tire, but there is some area around there. So things like emergency snacks, emergency blanket, flares, anything like that is probably going to be a pretty good fit into there. But one of the other reasons a hatchback for me is so great is because of the extra space we get when we fold down those middle seats, because there's no structure between here and there. And let me show you what that looks like. How much extra room? Well, with these seats folded down, you're looking at 59.3 cubic feet of storage capacity. And while that may not be enough to fit me terribly comfortably, there is a whole lot of room in here. These seats fold down, but not entirely flat. I am at a bit of a weird angle, but if you have a large shopping trip from something like Home Depot or Best Buy or your big Costco run, this is going to be easier to get some of those larger items in and out of because of just how square the space ends up being. And remember, this comes on a vehicle that's 11 inches shorter than that sedan, and I think it's probably the better looking. As far as space goes here in the front, it's very similar to the sedan, which for me is a little bit of a problem. I'm 6 feet tall and have a very long torso, so I sit very tall, and that means that I really only have probably about an inch or so of headroom here. But since B-pillar forward, this is exactly like the sedan, that is to be expected. The question is, with that roofline not flowing down, but instead staying pretty high up, how much more room do I have in the rear? And I'm gonna go find out right now, because that's the big question, and one of the big reasons to consider a hatchback, generally speaking, is for the practicality. Now, your door handle is gonna be tucked up here, just like we had in the sedan. Maybe not everyone's favorite, but aesthetically, I like that it just sort of disappears. With me set as the driver, first thing first, I've got about 3 or 4 inches of legroom here, so that's not a problem at all. And to be totally fair, I'm gonna sit as upright as I can. And the good news is, if I sit any forward, which is probably my natural seating position, I'm actually not in the roofline. I know this comes in quite a bit, so it may look like it. If I put my head all the way back, I'll show you over here, let me slide over one. If I put my head all the way back, I am gonna go ahead and gently touch that roofline, but this is way better than it was over in the sedan. So for folks who have taller passengers or taller families, this is something to consider just for that headroom more than anything else. As far as amenities here in the back though, there are just a few. This is going to be a fold down armrest, but these seats are going to fold down 60-40. So just know you can move around your passengers, but not as infinitely as if it was maybe a 40-20-40. 2 cup holders located right back here. We also have 2 USB-C ports, 2 vents, and a little bit of a storage cubby. So it's not like there's nothing back here, but worth noting over here on the driver's seat, no net. Over here, there is a bit of one. And in both of these door panels, there's enough space for a larger water bottle. And I actually mean larger, not just a decent size. You could fit something pretty large back there. Unfortunately, I didn't bring anyone with me. Taking a quick look here through the interior, this is going to be an exact copy paste from the K4. And if you're looking at any K4 videos, the only difference is probably going to be what color that ambient lighting strip is. But actually, one difference you may notice is going to be the interior colors. And that's because the EX comes standard in the Syntex material. And that in this case is going to be white trimmed with a black middle, which I think is going to be easier for keeping things clean. Most people don't like to have a lighter interior color if they like to have black jeans or blue jeans on. In this case, you get a little bit of both without having to worry about either. And in this case, we also have heated and ventilated seats, so that's going to be a plus. And if you really want to lean into the sporty look of things, you can go ahead and get the red interior look that we don't have available to look at today, but that's certainly going to bring a little bit more pop here, although I'm not sure if I'd pair that with the yellow. Let me know what you'd think down in the comment section below. I might be a little bit too tame for that. But we also have a very nice layout here when it comes to those screens. This is going to be kind of the standard Kia layout, which is your 12.2-inch screen on the left and on the right, and you also have your HVAC screen here in the middle, which means there are 3 different ways you can control your HVAC, either on that screen, on the main screen, or down here with some physical switches. You can't do everything there on the physical switches, but just enough to make it quick and easy to use. And again, your controls for the seat, heated and ventilated, are going to be there in the door. And this screen here, your main infotainment, is going to be running the same sort of software we found on the current K4 and lots of other Kia models, which means it's pretty good. It's nice and snappy. It comes with wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. And it's also going to pair really well with the same size screen we get here on the driver display, which is somewhat configurable, maybe not immensely, but just worth noting there is no heads-up display here at this model. And considering the price point and some of the vehicles it competes against, probably not something I'm missing too terribly much. That doesn't mean this is without features though. As you can see here on the steering wheel, especially here in the GT line, we do have things like your adaptive cruise control, your lane keeping assist. On the right side here of the steering wheel, mostly controls for things like your sound system, in this case the Harman Kardon audio system, which is a nice addition to have on a vehicle like this. You do have paddle shifters tucked there behind on the right side up, left side down. Then controls for your wipers, your lights, and those sorts of things are going to be on the stalks located just behind the wheel. If you want to put this thing into sport mode, you're going to find that button located just down here at the bottom of the steering wheel. Moving back over towards that center console, like I said, there are going to be some buttons here. If you want to quick access some of the specific widgets within your menu, you can go ahead and use those buttons there. One of my favorite things here is the favorite button, so that you can go ahead and assign that to something and make it quick and easy to get to. If you keep seeing that discharge warning, don't worry, this car is in sort of a show mode and there's nothing actually wrong with it. Just want to go ahead and address that for anyone who's concerned. One interesting point here though is that your volume is going to be a scroll wheel. There's a lot of different ways to do volume knobs, and as long as they're easy to access, I don't mind. The scroll wheel, I'm not sure how much I would love in day-to-day driving, but it's going to be a scroll wheel over there on the steering wheel. That one's probably what I would go ahead and use more often than not. If you tuck just down below where you find your climate control buttons, you'll find more power available to you. This is the interesting Kia and Hyundai dual use port. You can go ahead and switch its use by clicking this button here. You can see it switching colors there between regular power, or if you want to do connectivity with that infotainment screen. You have another USB-C over there, and just behind this, you'll find a 12-volt power outlet. But if you want to charge your phone another way, don't worry, just below there is going to be a Qi wireless charging mat. If you have Qi wireless charging, I expect wireless connectivity for the phones, and good news, all of that is here. One of my biggest drawbacks is still going to be this shift knob, and that's because it just seems large and out of place where everything else seems really streamlined, but it has what you need, park, reverse, neutral, drive, and if you kick it all the way over to the left, you can go ahead and use that in sort of a sport mode, shifting up and shifting down. Your engine start stop button is going to be located just to the front left of that, and auto hold, parking sensors, and your parking camera button are going to be located to the left or right of that shift knob. And when it comes to your cup holders, this is also going to be pretty versatile. If you didn't want to go ahead and put water bottles there in the back or in the door pockets that we have here for the front seats, you can go ahead and put them here. And if they don't fit within that cup holder, you can go ahead and move that cup holder and create a larger space. So these would basically just tuck away. And if you need them, press those buttons and they will pop back out. A very clever way to go ahead and maximize that storage. And there isn't a whole lot extra in here. There's a little bit of space there in the center armrest. And then of course we do have a glove box, but not a terribly large storage space in here either. I'd love to tell you exactly how much you'd expect to pay for a K4 hatchback, but Kia won't tell me at this time, so I can't tell you. What we do know is it's based largely off of the existing structure within those trim levels. But because those trim levels are going to be massaged just a little bit, for example, that EX comes standard with the Syntex seats, where on the sedan not available at all, it does mean you're going to pay a little bit more. And it's not just because we have things like this floating roof element built in, it is just because this is meant to be a little bit more of a premium experience for anyone who's jumping into that K4. Since the EX currently starts out at $25,165, I expect this to be closer to $26,000 starting, and I'd expect probably around $1,000 increase from just about every trim. That's just my guess. If you got a better guess, let me know down in the comments, because I don't know, there might be a prize for the person who ends up getting closest. But the fact remains, this is going to be available very, very soon. And not only is Kia hoping that it's going to bring some more people into the brand and this segment of vehicle, I'm hoping it brings people closer to other hatchback models, because less and less hatchbacks are coming out these days, and I absolutely miss seeing them. And where the Forte still had one, I was sad to see that go. Even if I didn't love that model, I liked the practicality, and we have all of it here. The only thing this still falls a little bit short on is going to be the exciting look that it has, and maybe not the terribly exciting drive that comes along with it. But again, what I said in the beginning still stands as far as I'm concerned, that I'd rather have it look really good and maybe not perform as well, especially considering this is not paying high-end dollars for a performance car that just doesn't seem to match what you ended up paying for it. That's all for me on this K4 hatch until we get a chance to drive it ourselves. Let me know down in the comments if you love this new color, if you love the hatchback, or if the sedan was all you wanted, or if the K4 just isn't it for you. What else should we compare this to? Because again, the number of hatchbacks specifically is getting a little bit lower, and I do think the K4 is one of the better looking affordable vehicles out on the road today. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, feel free to like and subscribe on this video and our channel. If you want to hear more of us and maybe see us a little bit less, you can also listen to us on your favorite podcast station, whether that be your Apple Music, your Spotify, or you can find us there on YouTube as well at the Auto Buyer's Guide podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time, I'll see you down the road.